Hi, Larry Crowe here. Welcome back to another Masterful Drumming drum lesson. 2 paradiddles, 4 limbs, and 2 rhythmical rates. So what do I mean by that? Well, 2 paradiddles. Today we're going to look at the single paradiddle and the inverted paradiddle. And we're going to apply these 2 paradiddles around the drum set. 4 limbs, we're going to be using all 4 of our limbs, and 2 rates, 16th notes and 8th notes. So our first example is hands over feet, which means the hands are playing the single paradiddle as 16th notes, and the feet will be playing the inverted paradiddle as 8th notes. Okay? And if we put those together, here's what that sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, as you can see, that's quite a coordination or independence or interdependence challenge. So when you're working on this kind of material, I always find the best thing to do is to break things down a little bit. So what I would do is I would work on the hands first. You know, you're playing the ride cymbal and the snare drum, you're playing a single paradiddle. Here's an example of that. 1, 2, 3, 4. The next step is to maybe look at what the feet are doing. So the feet are playing the inverted paradiddle at an 8th note rate, and here's what that sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the next approach would be to work on 3 of the voices, okay? And here's an example of the right and left hand playing the 16th notes and just adding the bass drum. So let's hear what that sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, the next step is to, again, use the hands and now get the left foot involved. Let's hear what that sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is a good approach. You know, always start slowly, work on 2 limbs, the other 2 limbs, and maybe 3 limbs, and try to put it together slowly, work at a very slow tempo. It can get really frustrating, so be patient with yourself. Okay, so this last example, this last variation is just me putting this idea around the drum set a little bit. I'm splashing the hi-hat with my left foot. I'm putting my left hand on the toms a little bit. I'm playing on the bell of the cymbal just to give this thing a little bit more character. These are very mechanical kinds of exercises. In fact, I wouldn't really recommend them as grooves you'd want to use with your band, but they're a great way to, you know, get in touch with your 4 limbs. Okay? So this is an example of just me freestyling a little bit with this idea. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the next step is to play the single paradiddle pattern in your feet at a 16th note rate and the inverted paradiddle with your hands at the 8th note rate. Okay? And here's what that sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and like we did before, let's isolate things. So first off, let's play the foot pattern, just to get comfortable with that. And here's what that sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4. The next step, which should be pretty easy, is just playing 8th notes with your right and left hand. So you're just playing the inverted paradiddle with the right cymbal and the snare drum. 1, 2, 3, 4. The next step is to try this pattern with 3 voices. Okay, so your feet are playing the 16th notes, you're adding the snare drum with the left hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. The next step, again, is to play the single paradiddle with the feet and add the right hand on the cymbal. 1, 2, 3, 4. You may have to play this one a little slower. You know, once you start to get your feet involved, your feet aren't going to be quite as capable as your hands. I know that's my case. My hands are more developed than my feet are, so it's always a challenge to play these. But again, if you just slow them down, you'll be fine. So this variation, just to try to make it sound a little different, I've got the cowbell that I'm playing with my left foot, playing a rim with my left hand, and moving my left hand around the toms. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, the third possibility is the right side of your body against the left side of your body. So you're playing a single paradiddle with the right side of your body, okay? And the left side, the limbs on the left side, you're playing the inverted paradiddle at the 8th note rate. Here's what that sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and again, we can apply this same approach. We'll just take a look at what the right side is doing first. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the left side. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we'll get 3 limbs involved. So the right side plus the snare drum. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, playing the single paradiddle with the right side, getting the left foot involved. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and here's a variation I came up with. I put some bells on the hi-hat to give it a different quality. I'm using a blast stick in my right hand, or brush, and I'm playing the rim with my left hand, and I've got the snare off. Let's hear what that sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth possibility is the left side of your body. The limbs on your left side are playing the single paradiddle at the 16th note rate, and your right side is playing the inverted paradiddle at an 8th note rate. Let's check that out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now let's look at things separately. So let's take a look at what the left side is doing, and that sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll just take a look at what the right side is doing, and that sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. The next step is to try this pattern with 3 voices. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and finally, the variation on this idea. I've got a walnut shaker that I've put on my hi-hat. I'm using a brush in my left hand, and I'm using a mallet in my right hand. Okay, just to give this pattern a completely different feel and try to make it sound less mechanical. Again, these patterns are really just something to work on, for your coordination, but, I always like to try and make things a little creative, a little more musical. Again, it adds another challenge when you've got these different sounds going on. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I hope you enjoyed that lesson. Take care, and we'll see you at the next one.